Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And my name is Leila. I'm the owner of Ahava Corporate Gifts, and we are so privileged today to have Simon joining us. This has been something that I've had in my heart for, geez, I think it's been 6 years. And I'll tell you why, because it was a Robin Hood Mahala tea, I think in 2019, that I actually first met Simon and I heard him speak. And I sat there thinking, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I had at that point just started my business. My business was only a year old at that time. And in the back of my mind somewhere, I thought, one day I'd love to do something with Simon. And we are so blessed to have him with us today. Um, it's not often that you meet somebody in the industry who's willing to share information for free. This is very deep insights. It's stuff that might seem simple, but it's not always that simple. I've learned that in business, 7 years in business, and I'm just starting to see the value of these insights and these little tips that actually just shift our positioning. So, Simon, thank you so much for agreeing to do this call with us. We are very excited to hear your tips, and I'm gonna let you take it from here.
Awesome. Thank you, Leila, and thank you everyone for being on this call. The focus of my presentation is to equip you with strategies and tactics to help you with your marketing strategy as you embark on 2026. And we were just saying, I don't know if you were joined a few minutes ago, that it's November in a few months' time. So before we know it, will be the new year. The focus of my talk is predicated on three elements for you to think about in terms of your marketing strategy. It's to look at your audience, who is that core group of customers or clients that you want to build a rapport with. The second is, how do you position yourself in the market? What differentiates you? And critically, how are you communicating that point of difference through your channels, through your vehicles to engage your audience? And I think before we move into that, for us to really take stock of the environment that we find ourselves in, choice overload. I'm sure many of us have Netflix or the equivalent. And I don't know about you, but certainly at nighttime, my wife and I probably spend half the evening going through different trailers and agreeing and disagreeing as to what to watch. So half the evening actually just is looking at our options before committing to anything that we actually end up watching. And I think it's so true as to we're inundated with content and options, whether that's Netflix, whether that's WhatsApp, our phones, social media, we are inundated. And I think that's so important to be cognizant of that with regard to our target audience and what they're experiencing. Critically, in terms of attention, where do we place our attention as the most precious commodity? Uh, what is it that is thumb stopping that is going to engage our consumer? So it's really to think about who our target audience is and what's important to them, and to engage on channels that are relevant to them. So that's something to bear in mind, is where are consumers spending their time and what are they focusing on? And then critically is the challenge that we face around mis and disinformation. That, and I think all of us in the session will agree, is a general distrust of institutions, and particularly that of the media and what we're consuming. Is this real? Is there a bias to our
Mm.
content? Is it AI generated? Where does the truth start and stop? And I think these are variables that we are facing and we need to bear in mind. And to cut through the noise, the model that I'd like to share with you, and I briefly touched on it a moment ago, is to think about our audience. Who is that core group of customers that we want to build a relationship with? And I think it's really important to recognize that not everyone is your target audience. Not everyone necessarily needs or cares or wants the brand or product or service that you offer. How you're positioned in the market, what differentiates you, as I mentioned a moment ago, and then critically the channels to communicate. And these are three non-negotiables. These have to be in your marketing strategy, in my opinion. And to tee off with audience, the first piece of advice I'd like to share with you is identify your ideal customer. Something that I strongly believe in is not everyone is your target customer. And what you want to do is segment your audience. If you were to think of a nachi or an orange, you've got segments that comprise the fruit. You want to extract who is that core group of customers you want to build a relationship with. And in order to do that, there's a number of segmentation variables that you will want to consider. And you probably have some of them already. So demographics is the study of human populations, and particularly from a brand marketing perspective, it's understanding a combination of physical characteristics. So age, you can imagine an 18-year-old is in a very different life stage to that of an 80-year-old. It can include race, sex, through to socioeconomic standing. And linked to that is your occupation. So you can imagine if you're an engineer or a doctor or potentially an entrepreneur, you could be earning really good money. And it's really to extract those core variables or characteristics. You want to then overlap that, and I think this is becoming more and more important, is known as psychographics. So the psyche of your consumer. And I think in many respects, it transcends physical characteristics. Just before we started, Leila made the comment around sport. Sport has the ability to transcend all physical characteristics and unite us. And I think rugby in particular, if you think of Sia Khaleesi and Rassie Erasmus, you know, what that team have done. And something that I think is really interesting to think about is it's not South Africa won the game, we won the game. And that's very much psychographics. It's us, it's a mindset. So those are some of the variables to think about when segmenting your audiences. You're likely to have some characteristics in place, but what I really encourage you is to think about what is the mind space or mindset of your audience. So that's regarding segmenting your audience. And what I encourage is once
Simon, if
you
I can
have,
just
yes,
interject there.
of course.
I think what you're saying, just on that point of segmenting your audience, it sounds like something that's quite obvious. But I've seen it in my business and I see it in so many businesses when you think of who is your client, we just because we want as much business as possible, to us, everybody's a potential client. And from what I've seen personally is when I don't know who my client is, I can spend a lot of time wasting time on trying to assist a client who's not my ideal client. I'm not doing them any favors, neither am I doing my business any favors. But it's almost a scary thing narrowing it down to a point where I'm saying it's just these people because it almost feels like you're losing out on all the rest of them. But it's actually a very bold and necessary step to take. So I love that you've highlighted this and that you've broken it down practically in terms of who is our audience, and especially that you've highlighted the psychographic part of it because um, a person might look a certain way and be live in a certain area, but ultimately we make decisions with our emotions, and tapping into that, it really distinguishes you from your competitors. So I love that. Thank you for that.
And I appreciate your experience running a business, having used that information and how it's helped you, Leila. So thank you. Essentially that. Build out customer profiles. For example, I have a cutout of this lady on my right, would be your right-hand side as well. And the value
I'm
of this
seeing you, not
exercise.
your presentation, by the way. I don't
Oh,
know if
sorry,
everybody
sorry.
else has seen your
That's
presentation.
thank you for highlighting that. Let me get back to sharing my screen.
Not that I
Is
mind
that
seeing you, but since you're
no, no,
talking about the
no,
lady.
no, no. It's it would be much better if you see the lady as opposed. Can you see her now?
Yes, I can see her.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'll carry on and like no one knows exactly what I'm talking about. Is so for example, I have example of this lady on my screen, and say for example, she is my target audience. We've got the demographic elements, but critically psychographic. And the power of this exercise is that we can visualize our target audience. We're engaging with people and that we can connect with people. And the power of this is that it helps with how we position our message and critically what we say. So the better we can understand our audience, the more empathetic we can be, the more we understand their world, the better we can shape and tailor our products and services accordingly. And that ultimately builds your brand. One thing I do want to round off with the example of audience is you have to test and refine. So I've been consulting for about 15, 16 years, and it's been a blend of consulting, lecturing, and speaking has been very much my world professionally. And when I started my consulting business, my target audience has fundamentally shifted from startup businesses to growth businesses over nearly 2 decades. And where I'm going with this is you have to test your audience and see what sticks and what doesn't. What is the value proposition? What is the price point? Not everyone necessarily needs or wants what you have to offer. It's about finding the niche, and that's where the gold lies. So I just want to test you that in my own experiences. I don't have a crystal ball, and even if I bought one, I don't think they work. You have to test and see what, how receptive the market is to what you propose. So please bear in mind that this is a work in progress, ultimately. The next element that I want to highlight under audience is map out the customer journey. So what I mean by that is your brand doesn't live in isolation. It comprises a number of points of contact that you have with your customer or client. And that's a really important facet of brand. Brand, well, is certainly built through marketing. Don't get me wrong, I believe in marketing and seeing the efficacy or success of it. It's not only marketing that builds your brand. You can promise the world through your marketing, but if you don't deliver at a product and service level, you're in trouble. You're going to be swimming upstream. So what I encourage you to do is map out, what does that journey look like from a prospect hearing about you? Maybe it's word of mouth. Maybe it's a targeted ad on Google or social media. It could be then that you take your prospect to your website, through to a social channel, whatever it may be, but understand that your brand is not just one contact point with your product or service. It's numerous. And what you want to do is highlight what are those key touch points that comprise that experience. If we were to take an example of, say, a restaurant that you love to frequent, you could have the most incredible food, but if the service is underwhelming, that's not going to endear you to the brand. So I encourage you to map out, what does that journey look like? What are the touch points? And if we take a restaurant, for example, it's the previous meal you've had there. It's the waitron, it's the ambiance, it's the atmosphere, it's the parking. It's all those elements that comprise the brand. So take the time and map out what are those important touch points and where can you improve? No brand is perfect. Think of a brand like a person. There are things that we get right and things that we certainly get wrong. What can we do? Maybe if we take the example of a restaurant, is the time from ordering to when your food arrives could be quite a long period of time. Is there a way in which you could expedite that somehow? So that's an example of ensuring that you elevate the brand experience. Then the next element that I want to share with you is gather market insight. There's only one way to really understand your consumer, and that's through exploring, understanding their world. So conduct market research, analyze competitor trends. If you can get a hold of trend reports that pertain to your industry, that's really going to help you in terms of what are some of the more macro trends, micro trends, what's important to your audience, and to use that data in your marketing strategy that you are listening to their needs. So that's a really important point to highlight, is gather research, and it could be through trend reports, it could be through interviews, it could be through surveys. And each type of research or tool that you use has pluses and minuses to it. So the value of a survey is that it can be anonymous and it will be quantitative in nature. So you're getting very hard stats around customer perception, for example. Whereas if you were to conduct a focus group or a questionnaire, it's more qualitative in nature. So it's about eliciting thoughts and feelings that are, that comprise your customer base, or certainly a sample of. So that's where the value comes in with research, and then critically is validate assumptions quickly. That we do have assumptions in business, but it's really a case of, is this in fact the truth or not? We have an hypothesis, what a word, hypothesis, and we need to test it to see what sticks and what doesn't. So that's the third point on market research. An example of a brand that I think is doing really well in the space, we're all familiar with PPS. And they've launched an offering called Glue. And I've taken a screenshot and pretty much to quote Michelle Jennings, who's the CEO of Glue. The ideal target market for Glue products is middle upper income individuals between the ages of 25 and 55 with a minimum household income of 30K per month, ideally with a diploma or degree, or with a connection to an existing PPS member. I thought that was fascinating. Remember we spoke about demographics earlier? And that's coming through here. That there's an age.
It's defined really well.
It's defined really well.
Yeah.
That you've got your PPS products, which I'm sure we're all familiar with, speaks to, for professionals in terms of their tagline, doctors, accountants, engineers, etc. That they earn good money. One tier lower than that, we can see that PPS have clearly thought about there's an opportunity. And I thought it was really fascinating, in particular at the bottom, or has a connection to an existing PPS member. So there's a demographic element, but there's also a psychographic. These are the spaces that your target audience occupy. So in summary, think about your audience. Not everyone is your target audience. I've learned that the hard way. It's an invaluable lesson, and you constantly test. And I'd like to pose 3 questions. So this is the first of the 3 sections that we're covering in the session. So the first one is, who would you consider your ideal customer, and what key characteristics define them? I spoke to this earlier. This includes potentially, and not exclusively, and not even necessarily applicable, race, gender, through to socioeconomic, factors. It could include the geography. It can include the behavior. How frequently does your target audience consume said product or service? Is it something that's consumed once a year, once a quarter, once a month, once a week, once a day? So the better you can understand the behavior, the better you can nuance your marketing as a consequence. So that's the first question. Then the second is, what are the biggest challenges or pain points your customers face in their daily work or life? I think this will be clear to you is the pain points. What is your target audience struggling with? The better we can understand their world and be empathetic and truly immerse ourselves in our target audience's world, the better we can shape our products and services to meet those needs or wants. So please take the time, particularly with point 2. And then the third, how do your customers typically make decisions, and what factors influences those choices? So how do they typically make decisions? What is it based on? What is in their consideration set? What goes through their mind when they're wanting to solve this problem that they face? And when it comes to factors that influence those choices, could it be people, for example, brands, marketing, communication, where they're at in life, etc.? The better we can understand our audience, the better we can solve those pain points. So those are the first three questions that I'd like to pose to you, and that's regarding audience. The next section is positioning. So your brand position is your stance in the market. And I think the greatest example is that of Volvo. And I think we can all attest that Volvo equals safety. Is Volvo the safest car on the road? Personally, I don't know. I don't know much about cars, but from a marketing perspective, I follow the brand in terms of its communications, and the brand is predicated on safety. Safety for those that are in the car and for pedestrians and other vehicles, quite frankly. So they take a holistic view of safety. And that's what differentiates them from the likes of BMW, Mercedes, Audi, etc. Whether they are the safest or not, that's what they're predicating. That's what that flag in the ground is all around positioning. And typically, you would speak about a slice of cake. I love pizza, so I've included a pizza slice just to mix things up. What
Thanks,
you want to
Simon. Now
do,
we're all hungry.
sorry, apologies. I mean, it's really nutritious, as you can tell, with that cheese and salami. Um, the thing that you want to do when it comes to building your position in the market is to identify your target audience. Who is that core group of customers that you're after? And what you want to do is highlight your unique offering. What is it that differentiates you? What distinguishes you relative to your competitor set? It can range from your history, your heritage. It could be your IP, so your intellectual property. It could be a process, a methodology. It could be a philosophy, whatever that thing is. You want to make sure that you own it, because what you're effectively doing is creating a fort you're creating a moat around your brand, essentially a fort that makes it hard for your competitors to attack. So you really want to own that and focus on your specialization. What is it that you offer your customer? What is it that they're going to get? And that it's clearly differentiated compared to other options that your customer has when choosing that industry and category specifically. The next element is to clarify your value proposition. And as you can imagine, they are intrinsically linked, how you position and also your value prop. And a simple way of thinking about it is the proposed value to your audience. What is it that they're going to get from you? What is that benefit? And critically, what distinguishes you from someone else? So what are the key benefits that they're going to get? That you're solving a very real problem that is explicit, and critically that it's differentiated. We are the only brand, as Martin Neumeyer, globally renowned brand strategist, speaks about, is having an onlyness statement. We are the only brand that does this or does X. We're the only brand that does. So it takes time, worth your while to lock down on what that thing is. Ensure that your marketing is predicated on this and that everything that you do in your communications is underpinned by that thing. The third is testing and refining. Gather market feedback. We don't have a crystal ball, and if we do, as I said earlier, it doesn't work. Listen to what your audience, what the market is saying. And if you need to adjust your message, what is it that you're saying and according to how you're positioned? And monitor perception shifts. What are people saying? What are they thinking? You really want to, where possible, understand where they're at so you can adjust your position accordingly. A brand that I think that is getting this really spot on is Pura. I'm sure many of you in the session have come across the brand. I think they're positioned so effectively. And what I've got here is a screenshot from their website. So you can see low sugar, natural flavor, no colorants, no preservatives. Hashtag Pura Soda. Hit refresh. Pura Soda comes without sugar rushes, rude colors, artificial sweeteners, and ingredients no one can pronounce. I don't know about you, but there was a lot of relatability with that. Tasty and refreshing, pure soda has just four ingredients, a sprinkle of pure cane sugar, and a skinny 65 calories per 300 milliliter can. It's soda, pure and simple. It's differentiated around it being a healthier alternative to other soft drinks. So the question is, what is it about your brand that has an owniness to it? And three questions to ask. How would you describe your brand's unique value compared to competitors? What makes you different? What makes you special? Is there a story that you can share? Remember, people connect with stories. And the key thing with storytelling and how you position yourself is place your customer at the center, make them the hero. And as a brand, as a business, that you're the guide, that you're helping them succeed. Consider what makes you unique. What key benefits or solutions make your offering stand out in the market? Not features, benefits. What is the benefit, the outcome, the result? How will this help me as the customer? And critically, are you communicating those elements? And thirdly, which audience needs or gaps does your positioning address most effectively? Are you clear on what that is? So those are three questions to think about in terms of how you position yourself, how you describe yourself. And I mentioned storytelling can be a wonderful way of conveying that. What are the benefits or solutions that can help you stand out? And I would lock down on what those are. I would keep them to as few as possible, less is more, and constantly communicate that. Because
Simon,
the
if I can
yes,
just interject there,
yes, of course.
I think the part for me that just summed this up so beautifully is when you said they are the hero, you are the guide, and we are there to help them succeed. That's just so beautiful because I know with our business, we always say we are here to partner with our clients. And people might think you sell branded pens. How do you partner with your clients? But it's all of this. It's sitting down, understanding who are they giving these pencils to? What type of pencil is that customer expecting? Do they want, are they going to be insulted as a CEO if you give them a cheap plastic pen, for example? So there's a lot of psychology behind this type of thing, but ultimately it's our job as a service provider, as the to go to our clients and basically ensure that whatever they're spending their money on with us is going to deliver. And I think that's where I see a lot of brands go wrong, where for them it's all about, I need to make as much profit out of this deal as possible versus I need to act in the best interest of my client. So I loved when you said they are the hero, you are the guide, we're there to help them succeed. And it's always said that clients look for service providers that can help them solve a problem. So I think this really brings it all together so beautifully.
Oh, cheers, Leila. Yeah, spot on. And I love the example of how you brought in your business into the mix. The third and final element is channels. So what I suggest is identify top platforms. Go back to your audience. What is their media consumption? What are their media habits? The better you can understand their channels, what they consume, and be present on them, the better. Prioritize audience engagement. What are they engaging with? What is content that is meaningful, that is going to help them, that perhaps is educational, informative, inspirational, entertaining, whatever it is relative to your industry and what you offer? You really want your audience to engage with your content and see you as a partner being there to help them and to guide them. And also limit distractions. And something that I think we all are experiencing is the explosion in AI. You need to be doing this, you need to be doing that, you need to be on this social channel and not another. It There's a lot of hype, and really the key takeout is spend time understanding your audience, focus on fewer channels, and do a good job engaging with them. And I think that will translate for you. You want to also balance your media types. So what that means is very simply is you get three types of media. You get owned, and each of these terms are pretty self-explanatory, but let me go through them. So owned media would include your website and your database. Earned is where you get spoken about, and paid is where you're putting advertising spend behind campaigns to get in front of your audience. So, for example, Google advertising or social media marketing, whether that be Facebook or um, TikTok or LinkedIn. So it's really a case of what is that blend of media that you have in place. You want to diversify content formats, and here what you need to think about is what is the content that I'm sharing per format or per channel. If you're on LinkedIn, which many of us are, that has over 1 billion users now, it's a very serious platform. It's a business platform. It's a very different engagement to say that of Facebook or TikTok. The key takeout here is what is the content that you're sharing per platform, and make sure that it's nuanced per that channel. So you're not going to be particularly serious, generally speaking, on TikTok, whereas on LinkedIn you are. So just depends on your audience and how that message is wrapped. And what you really want to do is maximize exposure as much as possible, that people know about you, that you have owned assets, brand assets, such as your website, for example, but that you're using social media, using PR, etc., to amplify your message and that more people know about you. So that's balancing media types. What I also suggest, and it ties into a previous point, is that you customize per platform when it comes to your message, that it's not a catch-all. You want to nuance per platform. You want to align it with your audience, and that's where the value of the initial exercise, understanding who your audience is, comes in really, it's really importantly. And the key benefits, why should I engage with your brand on this channel? Whereas, there's obviously a whole range of competitors or another brands, quite frankly, directly and indirectly, that you could be consuming. What is the benefit from engaging with your brand? I think an example of who is getting this right is Veldskin. I think we're all familiar with the brand, really well known for its shoes and its accessories. They've thought about the various channels in which they've engaged or engaging. So they've got their website where you can buy, apparel, you can buy shoes, etc. You can subscribe to the email or the newsletter, and then they also have a presence. And as the brand has obviously grown, they can afford to be on more platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and LinkedIn. And where I'm going with this is, as your brand grows and you have the resources, and provided your target audience consume these channels, it makes sense to have a broader reach. But if you're a smaller business, it is better to be on fewer platforms and do a really good job on those than stretch yourself too thin and dilute your engagement. So that's just an example with Feldskin. And as we approach the end of the session, 3 questions to ask you with regard to channels. So which channels are most effective for reaching a target audience, and why? Can you substantiate that one platform really translates and others don't? And something that, if you can't answer it, will help you is have objectives in place as to which channel you're going to be on, and critically have metrics. So metrics are a way of measuring the success of your engagements. What is really important is to lock down on those before going on to said channel, that you're clear on what you're looking to set out to do. Are you wanting to build an audience on said social channel? Is it about converting a percentage of that audience? Do you want to take your prospects from, say, social to your website? There would be metrics within that. From your website, you want them to inquire, and then obviously there would be leads as a potential metric in the mix there. So it's really a case of what is your objectives, what is your goals, what are you aiming to achieve by being on said platform, and critically, how do you measure the success, and that's your metrics. How are you currently, how do you currently balance owned, earned, and paid media in your strategy? Do you have those elements in place? And then the third question is, what methods do you use to track performance and measure success across channels? So that ties into my initial point here, where to justify that it's worthwhile being on a set channel or several is you need to be able to have a strong business case as to whether you keep it, mix things up, or pause or delete a said channel. Because you really want to concentrate your efforts on what translates. And that's where the value of having metrics comes into play. And in summary, there are 5 points that I would like to share with you based on what's been discussed. So know who your ideal customers are and what drives them. Not everyone is your target audience. I've learned that it's iterative. Get to know who's that ideal, that triple A, that perfect customer that continually buys from you, that is a brand ambassador, that speaks proudly of your brand, that pays you on time. That in itself is a beautiful thing. What drives them? What's important? Understand their pain points and motivations clearly. Deep empathy here. And it speaks to psychographics, the psyche, the mindset of your consumer. What's important? Define your brand's unique value. What makes you unique, makes you special, that distinguishes you, that differentiates you? And what is that market that you're after, that you own? Choose the channels that best engage your audience. And here you're doing your market research to understand what channels they are on, that you're leveraging your strengths in terms of, it could be video, it could be text, so it could be maybe a blog or written type platform, or it could be a podcast, or it could be a blend. But essentially, you want to leverage your strengths as a brand in communicating that as a format on those channels, and critically tailor your messaging that it speaks to your audience, and have metrics in place so you can optimize what has impact, what translates. So those are the 5 points that summarize the presentation. And yeah, Leila, if there's any questions that anyone has, we still,
I
yeah,
just,
maybe
I,
got a minute
I
or
just
two.
want to add to what you said, Simon, and thank you for
Yes.
that. As we were speaking, there were these case studies that came to mind, and I think you and I chatted about some of them when we met. So my background is working for below the line marketing agencies, and I think that's why I'm so excited when I hear you talk about these things, because I have seen big brands sit down and do full-on strategy and plan campaigns around all of these questions. And I've seen huge success and complete failure. And one of the things that comes to mind was a scenario where I think it was Ace Meal Meal, and they decided to do a campaign where the ad was that the guy decided to go and pay Lobola using the Ace Meal Meal, and they thought it was a very clever ad. So they knew who their target market was, but you like you explained, there's so much of depth to it. There's the psychographic, there's the research, the understanding. What they did was they actually alienated their target market by insulting them and suggesting that they could actually pay Lobola using mealie meal instead of cows. So that was the one. And then there was another with Lucky Star, where we actually had met with the marketing team. And they were so confused as to like what had happened, because their sales had suddenly taken a dive. And what took place there was they were being creative. So they were coming up with beautiful, amazing recipes for the pilchards, but it was ingredients that the target market weren't comfortable or familiar with or could afford. So there was a whole lot more to it, but It's just those two examples that show how important all of these aspects are and how they tie in together. And that essentially, and I'm guilty of this as a business owner, is that we wake up in the morning, we get to our desks and we work, 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 and we hope for the best and we try and market to as many customers as possible. But are we effective in what we're doing? Are we actually doing the homework? Are we sitting down and strategizing before we dive in head first? And I think that's where I see the value in what you do. And quite often I find, and I love going and meeting with my clients, and I would often sit with them and because of my marketing background, I try to understand who they are, who their target market is, who their clients are. If you're looking for a year-end gift for a client, who are they? How would it be used? It varies from company to company. And I find quite often when I start asking these questions, eyebrows get raised and the light comes on, and then they start to realize, oh, I haven't given that much thought. And I think, like I said, even myself as a business, we don't really sit and do the strategy first. And we just keep working so hard to actually get results where our strategy has failed us. And I'm so thankful that you've given us such great tips, so much to think about. But I'm also conscious, I mean, myself personally, I don't know, even with a marketing background, I don't know how far I would actually get by myself unpacking all of this. And I guess that's where you come in. So I'm just wondering if, I'm sure a lot of the others are wondering, how would you fit into a business environment? And, what would it look like for me to say, oh, I think I need Simon's help. Maybe I should consult him. Like how does that work?
So very simply, we have an exploratory, no obligation session to find out what your requirements are. I then feed that back over email to understand that we're on the same page regarding what your requirements, that have been discussed, and then I put a proposal together. Provide that's given the green light, I develop a brand or marketing strategy for you, and it can either be a once-off or work with you as you execute the strategy. So very much your go-to springboard.
Wow, that's definitely, I think, something a lot of people would want to do. And I do hope that others will get in touch with you. But we've got a couple minutes. I don't know if any of the audience have any questions or would like to comment on anything. If you do, just unmute yourself and
Yeah,
say
please.
hi.
I'm going to jump in and say something.
Thank you,
Uh-oh.
Um,
Sarah.
Oh,
no, it was just that I think just in my experience, even the companies that do strategy well, they tend to say, oh, well, 10 years ago we did a strategy and it worked really well for us, and then we don't need to, we know our audience. We did the market research 15 years ago and we knew this and this. And I think that's such a danger is that particularly for businesses that have been around for a very long time, they're very confident in thinking that they know their audience. And audiences change and people change. And I mean, we've seen massive growth in all different sectors, with who has buying power and who doesn't. And I think that's such a key thing that yes, it's important to know your audience, but to grow with your audience as your audience changes and grows, and constantly being checking in. I mean, there's such a wealth of information if you just speak to your customer base on a regular basis and stay in touch with them. You learn so much, and it's just to keep that process going. It's not a once off, oh well, we did it once, now we never have to do it again. Just to keep plugging away and keeping that, like you said, it's a partnership, it's a collaboration, it's relationship building, all of those things, just to keep those lines of communication and learning, constantly learning about your audience, and then tailoring your strategy accordingly.
spot
I
on.
love that, Sarah. I think what
Sure.
it says more than anything is you care. You care about your audience. And it comes back to the partnering with them as opposed to trying to make a quick buck out of them.
Yeah, it's a relationship. It's not transactional.
Mm. Thanks for
Lovely.
that, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. I think
Anybody
that's,
else?
yeah,
Okay, and we are
awkward. Yeah, the
out
healthy,
of
awkward
time.
silence. No, I think, yeah, that's good for timing. I want to honor everyone's schedules. And Leila, thank you for the opportunity. And I've added my details if anyone would like to reach out. Thank you. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Take
Thank
care.
you. Cheers. Bye. Cool. Thank you, Leila.
Thank you, Simon.
How does the rest of your day look?
Um, Busy, which is
Okay.
great, which is great. Please send me
Making the
the
most of it.
recording as well once
Yes,
it's done. I
I
think
will.
that
I
there were
will.
one or two people who couldn't join. They've just WhatsApp to say or
No
an
shame.
email to say, please share. So I'll pass that
Yes, I
on to
will.
them.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Cool. Thank you. We'll chat
Okay,
soon.
have a great
Thanks, Leila.
day. Take
You too.
care.
Cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye.